So today we're having this charge conference information session, and this is going to be recorded, and hopefully we'll be able to capture everything that is needed as we are talking and we are going through this new leadership structure. The charge conference will be held on September 15th, and that will be immediately after our worship as well. And this would be for the nomination and the election of the new church leaders. Now, I do want to share our purpose and how that purpose came about and how that has been reflected in this new leadership structure. So if you remember, a couple years ago, there was a consultation that we had through Sparks Mill, and we were trying to figure out where our church and our purpose was leading to. So through that consultation, the purpose of Leesburg United Methodist became creating environment and experiences to help all people grow in faith in Jesus Christ. Now, you would notice that there were some changes, and this was also as an extension of that consultation for us to figure out how we can be inclusive for all people. And because of us changing that purpose, what we had decided to do is we decided to put a guiding principle of making sure that we have a strong intention and strong purpose and focus on families, youth, and children. Families, knowing that families come in all shapes and sizes. And also one of the other words that we heard was making sure that this is cross-generational, leading to any kind of engagement with intergenerational engagements. And where we to remember meeting people of family where they are and serve others as a sign of God's love. This has become our guiding principle in all that we do. And in order for us to remember how we are creating this environment and creating these experiences for us to grow in Jesus, that is why we use this, what the values called root. I call it rooted. And it is because in order for us to grow in faith, what we need to do, we need to have a deep root. And our deep root comes from worship. Our deep root comes from community. And also our deep root comes from mission. So in that, we had started this Rooted Sunday, which we're going to celebrate next Sunday. And this is going to be a way that we create a rhythm in our church life where we have certain focuses. And last year, we had started how we are focusing and being intentional in our worship. And this year, starting next Sunday, we're going to start focusing on how we can truly become developing small groups and communities within our church. So what happened is through that, the CLT had convened the Nomination and Leadership Development Task Force, which is a committee that is set aside for the preparation of nominating, and finding any leadership development opportunities in our church. And that nomination leadership had started convening starting in January. And when we first started, there were some things that we wanted to make sure in our framework of work that we wanted to implement for this new church board. The first one is, can we find a structure that connects all parts of ministry in our church? Which also means that some of our ministries may not have been connected. Can we find a structure that allows us to make seamless decision-making, which does not require constant meetings? So I always talk about this. I come from Korea, as you know, and there's a Korean idiom that we have. The word meeting is 회의. 회의 is our 회의. But 회의 also has another meaning that means discouragement. So we have a phrase that says, the more you meet, the more discouraged you'll become. Right? And we have a lot of meetings. Our SPRC has monthly meetings, our finance has monthly meetings, our trustees has monthly meetings, and our CLT would have monthly meetings. So in the worst case scenario, let me just share a worst case scenario. So our normally our vice chair goes there, but when the vice chair can't be, they'll be having a monthly trustee meeting. So let's say 12 meetings a month. But the trustee also have to send a representative to the finance. So let's say that we didn't have a delegation of vice chair going to finance. That would be another 12 meetings that this trustee chair may have to go through. And then on top of that, the trustee chair needs to represent us on a CLT, so that's another 12. So there's a minimum of 24 to 36 meetings that a trustee chair needs to go to. Boy, that might be a discouragement. And boy, that I know why people don't want to sign up for these things, right? So that's another question. Can we develop a leadership pipeline that allows a soft entry? So this comes from what we call growing young. I don't have keychains anymore, but the way that we had passed on leadership was one person will start assuming all the relationships in the church. And by the time they had served for 40 years, and like I said, I don't have a keychain, my only is one, they will have bundles of keychains. And after 40 years of service, what would they do? I did my dues, and I don't have any strength left. They will pick a young person and drop this entire keychain onto their lap. We wonder why people don't want to serve in any kind of leadership positions. Why? Because all these responsibilities are dumped into them without giving them those soft launching pads. Why not give, like we are doing for our kids, a key for their car? And it's a spare key. You would never give you the entire key, right? That spare key can be locked when they cannot resume their responsibilities. And the last one is, can we define roles, responsibilities, and what we call races of committee, staff, lay, leadership, and groups within the structure? So a lot of people will not do where their responsibilities kind of end and extends. So what I had saw in a lot of our meetings, that we're making same kind of decisions, not over and over again, but there are times that it felt like that decision was already made and we're just talking about it again. So with all that, let's make it simple. Let's leverage the book of discipline and then use a simple language congregations will understand. So that is the background of all this, and I'm going to invite Jill, who was also part of our she was part of our CLT, also a part of our nomination and leadership development, to chair about the new church board structure.
Yes, I'm really excited about this. I have been one of those people who had multiple meetings every month to go to, and it is a burden, especially when you have daily life. So if we could change the slide.
Yeah, can we go to slide? Yes.
There we go. So the cool thing is this takes the current CLT, MLT, old words are council, old words are administrative board, and loosens it up a little bit. So the idea is, if you want, think of it as the board of directors. In any other environment, we might understand it. The board of directors sets the direction, but they're not involved in every single decision every single day. They pass down the direction and say, okay, I will trust this leader to execute the plan. And that's kind of what we're building here. So we have a board, and that opens up the body of collaboration. Not every board member is involved in every single aspect. So we're going to have it combining the work of all those management groups, will guide and support, while also releasing the details of the execution to the people who are actually doing the work and have their hands in every single piece of it. So it's rolling it down so that we can really make the decisions, and not everyone has to be part of every single decision in the church. That, hopefully, done well, will make us nimble, flexible, and take us back to a ministry focus. So the next slide. What that looks like in practice. Yes, this follows the roles that are required in the Book of Discipline. There are certain people or positions that are required to be part of this leadership committee to make sure that all parts of the church are represented. But this is kind of divided into 3 sections. And on the right, you see the traditional business functions of the church, because whether you like it or not, we do have business and administration functions that we have to maintain. Our finances, the trustees maintaining the property, SPRC. These are critical committees. Then you have discipleship, worship, and connect, all focusing on ministry, connecting inside and outside the church, ministry with worship and discipleship, us learning, growing as disciples. And Then the other piece is the connection. The chair and the pastor are also members, chair being traditionally lay leader, and we have 2 lay leaders in this church because we have 2 clergy, and there has to be a match, 1 for 1. So the chair will be one of the lay leaders, the vice chair will be the other lay leader, and then you'll have both clergy. Preschool chair board, we have updated the preschool
Bylaws.
thank you, bylaws, and we have a new preschool board. It's more formalized, it's better connected to the church and to our ministry, so it is part of the leadership. And the United Women in Faith are all part of it. So this streamlines the board, but the one thing that we will say is it pushes the decision-making down. So the board itself is going to collaborate across all of these items, but the trustees does not have to be in every single Connect meeting about how we conduct the concerts on the apron. You know, we are going to focus our energy and focus our effort into where it adds the most value, but it doesn't lose the connection because we still have the connection of the board. And each committee, each group will meet according to what they feel is necessary for the work that they have to do.
Thank you very much, Bill. So I share this as my own personal hope. And Jill keeps on saying, RJ, don't get obsessed with the times of meetings. But my hope is that we only have 4 board meetings a year. If these committees function as it is, the way that we hope and pray, I do not see that there's need for more than 4 board meetings a year. Now, it is going to be a stretch because our board had met 12 times a year. Of course, there are times that they would skip, but it was up to 8 to 12 times a year. For us to come from 8 to 10, 12, it's going to take some time. But in this transition, I am confident that there is going to be a day that we're going to have 4 board meetings a year. And that 4 board meetings will present something that I call it more like a infographic for all the church members, that you'll be able to see what kind of decisions are made and what is our direction as a community of faith. That's where the communication will come from. So with that said, I'm gonna share the nomination for the church board leadership. First one, from our breakdown, the connection is really more of how we are sending connectional people. So the chair and the vice chair are not only the leaders of this board, but they are the representatives from our church to the district and also to the annual conference. That was a traditional role of lay leader. Now we're calling it a lay member who will be that representative and who will be the board chair and vice chair. And on that, we have Greg Early, who had committed to be part of this endeavor, and we have Kathy, who is also here, to be part of this endeavor as the vice chair. I keep on putting co-chair, vice chair, that's synonym for me, but it's really more just to make sure that we represent 2 pastors and 2 lay members of equal representation. Preschool board, as Jill has said, we had formed a new preschool board, and that actually comes from the intention that preschool wanted to continue to be a faithful ministry of Leesburg United Methodist, and it is our obligation to make sure that we are in a close relationship. So Margaret Snyder had volunteered and share her interest of being the church preschool chair. And also, as we all know, United Women in Faith, this is more of an ex officio role. Whoever becomes a president will have a place in the board with a vote. So those are the 3 who are in the connection. Ministry, I'm going to talk about ministry. We have a worship committee, and Celesta Miller is going to be and continue to be our worship committee chair. And discipleship, we will have Kim Kadash, who will commit to continue our discipleship, which includes adult discipleship, youth, and children. Now, our connect will be normally what we traditionally know as fellowship and missions committee, and we are waiting for a person who we asked nominated to respond back with their decision. And of course, we have the staff who aligns with each of the ministry staff, which is worship will be Reverend Ray, and then discipleship, I will be overseeing it with all our staff Angela and Reverend Ray as well. And our Connect committee will be staffed by Angela Bisek. Now, our administration, these are the three who will be continuing their role as we had nominated from our last charge conference. So these are our nominations. And what we are doing on September 15th is to vote for these nominations. Because charge conference have the function to nominate our leaders. And in order for us to nominate and have this board started, we need the approval of our charge conference. This is where it gets a little tricky because normally our charge conference is in October. And any nomination that is affirmed by that October or November charge conference starts their work in January 1st. So what happened is this special charge conference that we will have will approve these nominees, and they will start effectively in the adjournment of the charge conference up to December 31st of 2024. And these same names will be presented on our October charge conference, which will be approved, and they will extend their work on January 1st of 2025. I know this is just something that we needed to do in order for us to be part of the book of be par to the Book of Discipline's requirement. So with that said, I would like to ask and open up the floor for any kind of questions, thoughts, feedbacks that you have. Yes, Chris. Yeah, you can mic, yes.
Yeah, so two different areas. So one is, I think the Book of Discipline calls for a minimum membership on any leadership structure. So United Methodist Men, youth, and young adults.
Yeah.
And I don't see that here.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if you're only meeting 4 times a year, typically the CLT has to make all the big decisions. Something breaks and we need to spend money out of reserves to go fix it.
Yeah.
How does this structure account for things that are like unbudgeted and,
Right.
and do require some sort of top-level approval?
Yes. Thank you. So the reason why you had pointed it out, there's United Methodist Men that needs to be there, young adult and youth as well. Young adult, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that the Connect Committee chair also fills into that young adult. So that's our requirement. Our previous CLT didn't have UMM because we don't have an official UMM. There's always room to put it in if we are deciding to recreate the United Methodist Men position. Now, youth would also be something, but this is something that I would say, should we put it in as a needed or a required, or just because we want to meet the requirement? Or should we put it in as because we really want to make sure that we hear their voice? There are other committees that I said, because the board, and 4 is not something that we're going to stick on. That's my position. However, since there are other committees that we are going to reflect the voices of youth, men, and all the other areas, we believe that this is something that we can still actively hear their voices. Now, with the other question that I was answering, in order for us to do that, that's what we need. Committees need to have a couple things. Number one, we're trying to ask the committees to have a ministry action plan, which will be a year-long planning for the ministries. And when the church board kind of receives that, there's no reason to go on to every single detail of the ministry plan that was laid out. However, there will be times where some of the ministry that emerges might be beyond the budget, that needs to have some cross-committee relationship. That's when the CLT will come in and make decisions. And these kind of decisions can be easily made instead of having a regular meeting, having some kind of ad hoc voting mechanism. So that's the direction. And as I said there's a direction. I don't think we're going to drastically move to 4 times a year. We may gradually go down to 4. Did that answer your question, Chris? Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other questions that we have?
Anyone upstairs? Betsy?
Yes, Bessie. We will provide this in print. Yes. Yes, of course, on a PDF. What we were going to do is after this, we're going to create a page on the website. We'll have this all, that is next.
Will the church provide some printed copies? Because there's people who don't use the website and certainly don't want to print all that color on their personal printer?
We will make copies available starting next Sunday. So whenever anyone comes, they will be able to. It will be starting this week. So if you want to stop by the office, we're happy to provide that. Next Sunday, we'll definitely put some prints outside so people can take it back. Great. Any other thoughts, questions, and answers? Yes, Todd.
Hold on. You do for the recording.
Just for the recording.
You can't shout to the web.
The idea for this reorganization, I'm going to call it, did that come from above our church, or is this organic from within our church?
I think there's two things. Not above. What we're trying to comply with the Book of Discipline better, so that's why it was one of the framework. It was not from above. However, Sparks Mill, the consultation that we had, they had asked that one of the follow-ups for us to do for this purpose to really kind of settle into our church is to have a streamlined leadership structure. So from that was a charge that we had, and the CLT was trying to figure out how to make that possible, and that's where the Nomination Leadership Development Committee was formed to and tasked this. So I think it was somewhere that we met in the middle. Any other thoughts or questions? Now, I do want to share that our nomination leadership had worked in a very efficient way. And one of the things that we had talked about is not only that we have a clear understanding of everyone's role and responsibilities, like building a RACI chart, or also we had a manual that we built that is 70 pages long, so everyone knows which committee does which role. That can all be available, so if you need that, we will print that out as well. And in that, what we want to do is we want to make sure that everyone is part of this role, because we don't want 20% carrying out the load of 80. And this is something that we believe that will spread this responsibility across, and it will continue the good work of Leesburg United Methodist. So with that said, can I close with the word of prayer so we can transition into worship? Lord, we are grateful because of your love and your grace that continues on to work in this church. And in this new leadership structure change, may you continue to be with us, may you lead us, and may you be glorified in all that we do. We thank you and pray this all in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you very much. Thank you for staying for this information session, and thank you for being part of this journey.